Now, how can the coalition recover from those Newspoll numbers? We saw them yesterday and they look pretty disastrous. On a two-party preferred basis, it's Labor 55, Coalition 45. And in particular, what you see is the skewing where the older Australians are still, favouring Conservative politics, but the Conservative side of politics seems to be failing to reach younger Australians. Barnaby, how do we talk to them? How do you talk to them? How do you get through?
Well, sometimes it's not chasing the polls that gets you elected. It's having a message and standing behind it and enunciating it. For instance, when we started against the carbon tax, I remember Malcolm Turnbull berating me. He said only 7% of people believe that we shouldn't have a carbon tax like you do, Barnaby. By the time we'd finished, it was changing prime ministers, changing elections. So the art of politics is not to follow polls. It's to go to the people and clearly explain what you think, what you believe is to be a proper course. And I'll give you one. We now have, the reason power prices are going through the roof is renewables. Remember, we used to have the cheapest power in the world. Now we're getting the dearest power in the world. And on April, in this coming year, they are going to blow up Liddell Power Station. And this is under and the current government has the capacity to stop that if they wish. They could have divestiture powers, they could do a whole range of things to make sure that doesn't happen. As they continue to short the power supply, the price is going to continue to go up and people are going to continue to get poorer. And I think cost of living is going to become more and more an issue with high price of fuel, high price of food and astronomical price of power. And there is no solution to that unless you increase supply. And the way the Labor Party is trying to do that is with renewables, which is intermittent power, which sure can work on a market that buys power in 5-minute blocks. But if you made it so they had to buy power, they had to supply power on a 24-hour block, then a lot of these intermittents would go out and you'd be able to greater underpin the capacity to supply bulk onto the market. Bulk supply, continuous. That's the only way you're going to deal with things such as price. And that's just one issue. And we're going to see a whole range of other issues coming to the fore as the socialists, as the people on the left demand their pound of flesh. And you'll see it in like these discussions about removing Australia Day, 30% of all country to remain as it is. I heard Minister Plibersek talking about that, signing us up or pledging methane taxes. All these things start to build one on top of the other. And remember that they're now responsible for the government. So if the debt goes through $1 trillion, the Labor Party did it. And by the time you get to an election, the gloss is off and the reality bites, and we'll see what happens then.
Well, if that's your message, it's got to be sold clearly, and it's got to be sold by both the Liberal and the National parties. Barnaby Joyce, thank you very much indeed for your time.